Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 37 of The Front Lounge with the brothers Congos. Very excited today. We have one of our good friends, a brilliant filmmaker named Tony Dean Smith, so we'll introduce him in a moment. First, a couple things off the bat. Lunatic instrumentals are out. We've been wanting to put these out for a while, finally got around to it, and getting a great response so far. People have wanted to hear the music without our voices. I really like listening to them that way. It's nice to hear all the parts that you just can't hear when the vocals are there. And sometimes my vocals are not my favorite, so I prefer listening to the instrumentals anyway.
We should do instrumental podcasts.
Yeah. All right. Other than that, support the podcast by going to our Patreon. That's patreon.com/Congos. Or you can subscribe here on Twitch. You get the ad-free version. And that's really supportive. So without further ado, here's our guest, Tony Dean Smith. Say hi, and we'll get into who you are, how we met, and what you're working on and everything.
Sure. Hey, guys. Such a pleasure to connect with you guys. And yeah, we go way back. So really nice to virtually hang out with you. Thanks for having me.
It's been a while since we've even talked as friends. You know, I think as life goes on, you just get kind of busy. But we met, I feel like 20 years ago, I want to say.
Yeah.
Like, does that sound crazy, or is that right?
Oh, my God. Well, now when you put it that way, I think you're right, because obviously we worked on a film together in 2004 or 4. Okay. So, yeah, we would have met 20 years ago. Fuck. That is crazy. We can't blame it all on COVID, right? Being locked down? No, that's just time going away from us.
I remember it was definitely around that time because it was my first trip to Canada when we went to the film festival in Vancouver.
Yeah.
Right.
And the 4 of us went, or 3 of us went. Was it just me, you, and Jesse?
Yeah, Danny was,
Yeah, Danny was young.
Danny was young.
Probably only 17 or
Wow.
15 maybe.
Yeah.
That was fun. That was like
Amazing.
first kind of trip outside of the country without the family, without the parents. Felt like an adult going to a film festival.
Right.
But so, how we actually met was not work related, really. It was through a friend of ours who is Tony's aunt, South African lady, who it's kind of a weird story, I think, when you actually think about it, because she grew up in a house like 2 houses down from where we grew up 20 or 30 years prior. And then we end up in Phoenix, Arizona, and her nephew and niece come over, and we meet them, and this all this story kind of comes out. You know, just a tiny world, South Africans. It's not a tiny country, but for some reason, when they go to other countries, they find each other, South Africans, and these small communities develop.
They really do.
Well, yeah, Tony, maybe just explain to us, who you are, because you were visiting from Vancouver to Phoenix. You were visiting for Christmas or something like that. I think that's why we met, or one of the holidays.
Yeah, we were always, I was born in South Africa, and we were always planning on moving to the States. And so, a lot of our family, including Susan, my aunt, moved to Phoenix, to Scottsdale. And so we were always supposed to go there, and for whatever reason, we didn't. And I think because I can't take super hot sun, my parents sort of use as the excuse. It's not really true. And anyway, they loved Vancouver, and there were some sort of sanctions against South Africa, so Canada was easier to get into. But we always came down to Scottsdale to visit with our family. And yeah, I remember meeting you guys at that point, and Susan was like, you got to meet the Congas boys. And their dad, of course, was Johnny Congas, from the musician from the 70s. And it was just amazing meeting you guys and how inspiring it was. And what a trip, actually. I forgot that my mom and Susan grew up a couple of houses down from where I guess you guys... Was it where you guys grew up in South Africa?
Yeah, so we grew up
same neighborhood.
So crazy.
We walk by, when we're back there, we walk by the house all the time. It's like
That's amazing.
2-minute walk.
I don't know if you guys have used the VR headsets at all, but they've got this app called Wander, which is basically Google Earth, but it's like, it's 3-dimensional. And I actually visited that street and everywhere in South Africa, and it was very emotional because, I haven't been back since.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that you'd never been back since you moved away.
Well, I went back 6 months later. So, I went for my cousin's bar mitzvah, but that's it. So really, it's been a long time.
How old were you when you moved?
I was 12.
Okay. Yeah, around the same.
And 6 months later, similar age, yeah. the funny things, like 6 months later, I came back with a full-on Canadian accent, full-on like Americanisms. It's all bullshit. I just wanted to fit in and be different, but not be too different. Still fit in.
Right.
So
I had the opposite reaction for some reason when I moved to the States. I dug my heels in, and I didn't want to change my accent and didn't want to. I was very opposed to adopting new mannerisms.
Yeah, the assimilation. Yeah. No, me. I mean, the joke is that I kind of lost my accent 2 weeks before I immigrated. That's how much I loved America and the idea of America, and just wanted to fit in, I suppose.
At that time, to get the idea of America, you moved to Canada, which is kind of funny.
I know.
I mean, it's America.
It's a little backwards. Yeah, it's America. It's America light. It's America with apologies.
Yeah.
So from that meeting, just through family, friends, Tony was a filmmaker, has been for a long time, and it came up that he was working on a short film and asked me to score that film. That film was called Reflection. And it was my first time ever scoring anything. Obviously, we'd been working on music a lot, but to put it to film was a whole new learning experience for me. That film went to Vancouver Film Festival. We went up and watched that and did really well for it's like an 8-minute short, but it really did well. I mean, how much of where was that in terms of your career and starting?
I mean, that was at the beginning for sure, professionally. I had made a bunch of short films, short videos growing up, as I know you guys did as well, just with like video cameras and learning how to do it the old school way. And I made a digital feature called The Other Side of Being. There's no point saying digital anymore because everything's digital, but before it was only film. So I actually made that before film school. It's basically a film like The Sixth Sense, before The Sixth Sense had come out. And then after film school, I struggled and I was scared and didn't know how to kind of break in. And so, this film Reflection was born out of my interest in more esoteric subjects, always kind of housed in a commercial vehicle. But, it's about like a family that loses a child, and the father starts seeing the daughter in his dreams, and he believes he's having a spiritual experience, but the doctors think he's showing signs of mental illness. And so, I've always been connected to that stuff and that subject matter. And so I worked on this short film. And after meeting you guys and just seeing how talented you all were, and, Johnny and I guess, connected. We were the oldest, so we connected maybe first because of that. And just your brilliance on the keys and your melodies. And so it was an obvious choice to ask you to, if you'd consider doing it. And I'm so thrilled that you did.
Well, I was thinking about this, that I'm glad so far we've only worked with you twice in that way. Is another short film after that, but both have been relatively dark subjects, which is good because I can't write happy music. I don't think so. If you did a rom-com, we'd love to work on it with you, but I don't know if we could do it.
Well, I'm in the same boat, and that's been sort of the story of my career, where I kind of know who I am, and yet also just want to, of course, work. And so, I'm not a rom-com guy. Like, I mean, I like watching them from time to time, but I have a darker part of me that likes to, I just think like to get to like life affirming or certain themes, you have to go through the darkness. And it's just always been me. So
we should probably also mention you have 3 siblings, right?
I do.
He has
3
one
siblings.
brother, 2 sisters, all creative people. Have you done a lot of stuff with Ryan? Because your brother. I'm not explaining that Ryan's your brother to you. I'm explaining it to the people listening to the podcast.
Yeah, like since or just in general. I guess yes.
Yeah, ever
yes,
because
general, of course.
Yeah, because knowing you guys, the personality differences are quite clear, and I think it would make if you haven't worked on anything together, I think that would make a very good team. Does it work that way?
Well, we have. I mean, we have grown up kind of like you guys. We just, Ryan was my actor. Ryan was, as a kid, he was the guy who was in all my short films, whether he wanted to or not. In fact,
you have tell us
contract.
About the contract. Yeah.
Yeah, we have a contract that I wrote when I was 12 years old for him when he was 7, and it's on Knott's Berry Farm dinosaur paper, and it's basically like Ryan will come out and film the scene whether he wants to or not. He can't wimp and go crying to mommy, and it's like signed by like a 7-year-old signature, and that's
never hold up in
true.
court. It'll never hold up in court.
I know, probably not, but no, but we've always. we've always loved working together. And yeah, while we are quite different, certainly on the surface, he's got, very good short hair and looks very professional. So I guess I don't. But on the page, we write together a lot. And on the page, we have very similar voices. And, obviously we bring different aspects and elements to the work. But we blend really well. And we do balance each other really well. Where I'm more of maybe a leap of faith into the unknown. Sometimes I need the grounding and vice versa. And so we wrote Volition together, which is a feature film that we can talk about.
Yeah. Well, in fact, I wanted let's just start right on that. I've got the trailer for that. This is available now, I believe, kind of everywhere. I'm seeing it's Apple TV, Showtime, Amazon Prime.
Yep.
So you got really good distribution for this in the digital age. We saw it for the first time when it was at a film festival in Los Angeles. We saw you down there. But it was cool to see because you had sent us some early cuts of it, and it's always nice to see that process. We've worked a bit on film, but to see real film being worked out, is a whole different thing. To see how radical some of the changes were that you made through the various versions. So why don't we quickly just play that trailer, and we'll come back and talk about it.
Sure.
My mother died when I was 7 years old in a car accident. I saw it 2 months before it happened.
Jimmy, in the flesh. So how's life?
It's day to day, I'm James.
Angela.
I got a proposition for you. I need you to do that thing you do in that head of yours. I need you to find safe passage for these.
I saw my dad.
I warned you, didn't I?
I had no choice. I needed the work.
Of course you had a choice.
It's not what I saw.
How long have you been like this?
It's more of an affliction, sadly.
You make it sound like a disease.
What about him saying that he saw the handoff?
You know how many things are in that guy's head? Who knows what he saw?
We're not safe here. We gotta go.
I thought you said you saw this working out.
I did.
And what happened? I don't know.
Right now, you've got to do everything in your power to change this. You've got to leave now.
What's happening?
You're beginning to fragment.
You drilled it into my choices.
This is going to be hard to understand. Maybe it's time you learned the truth about your condition.
I'd say that's it's one of the best trailers I've seen recently because I'm often on Netflix or something like that and looking for something to watch, and I watch a trailer and I go, well, okay, I don't need to watch that. It's like either it's a shitty trailer or it's given away everything. And this trailer, because now I know the story, and by looking at the trailer, it doesn't give anything away other than a little bit of mystery and entices you. So yeah,
I kept hearing really good things about Triangle of Sadness, but the trailer I thought was fucking horrendous. And I mean, I like that guy. I like The Square, and there's another one I've been meaning to watch of his, Force Majeure. But so yeah, trailers are.
I'll check it out.
Dodgy
yeah,
things.
it's an art form in itself and very dodgy. And we definitely had certain people wanting us to reveal more in the trailer, but you can't. I just think the old school more interesting, and so we really pulled back, and it just gives you just a hint that there's something else going on. But you got to see the movie to see it. So thank you.
Yeah, very.
I mean, so yeah, definitely go check that out. This is your directorial writing feature debut, right? It's the first feature that you wrote and directed, because you've edited probably hundreds, thousands of films and
millions. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I wrote the first draft of Volition, and I was going to go off and make it on a very, very low budget, and then the movie financing fell apart, and I fell apart with it for a little while. And then actually Ryan really liked the idea, but thought it could be sort of taken in a slightly different approach. And so he worked on it. You know, we basically took it down to the studs and rebuilt it back up. The characters are the same, the story's the same, but the way it's told is, you know, the way the kind of movie, if you've seen it, like sort of folds in on itself in a really kind of interesting way. And so that was really Ryan's idea. And so we basically worked on it for another 5 years, really hundreds of drafts until it was ready to kind of go out. And we had interest from different production companies to make it, but they wanted to make some changes to it. And, you know, I'd gone so far into trying to just, you know, do things for other people that I wanted to live and die, you know, kind of by my own sword and my own actions. So we really made it independently. We got some private financing. So yeah, it's my featured directorial debut, really, but it's written by the both of us. Ryan produced it.
Right, I forgot that because I remember having a long conversation with him about the script at the time. You guys didn't pick an easy. You've done this always, is you pick something that involves the question of free will and determinism and aspects of time, not travel, but like time and space. And you're like, well, let's try and figure out the whole universe in this first film. Kind of like, I guess, honestly, Christopher Nolan in Memento is obviously quite a parallel, I think, movie. Was that an influence for you? Are you obviously a fan of his, I would assume?
I'm a huge fan of his. You know, this concept I wrote in film school. I wrote a short film called Delay, which was in 1999, so that's before Christopher Nolan. And it was about a scientist who's always late, and he invents a magical pill that makes him like early, but it actually goes further. It makes him like cerebrally early. He's able to see things in 15-minute increments before they happen, and he ends up getting trapped in his own like perception. So that was kind of the roots of the short film, and then you know, it just developed into what it was. And then, you know, I try to write always from a personal standpoint, and I was just feeling really stuck at one point in my life, creatively, and how do I navigate this changing landscape of film? And I just realized that my own perception was actually the self-fulfilling prophecy. I realized that like, because I felt stuck, I then kind of, if I dug my heels into that stuckness, then I was stuck. So the character in Volition is someone who has clairvoyance. Everything he always sees, vision-wise, always comes true. And so he doesn't believe in free will. And so I realized the only thing that would get me off of my ass was to do the exact opposite of, you know, what my inclinations were. And it's the same for James. James, basically, the character, has a vision of his own imminent murder. Someone in his inner circle is going to murder him, and you've set up in the movie whatever he sees comes true. And so he's got to, you know, battle fate, which of course he doesn't believe he has the free will to change things. So that's the roots of it. And yeah, we don't take on small ideas. And it's funny, we swore we'd never do, you know, it's like perception, time, travel-y things. And our next like 2 projects, we have a few things on the go, but of course they're all about that same subject matter, which is just a piss off. It feels like we're literally like Sisyphus and, you know, Cassandra all in one. So, yeah.
One of our chat listeners is asking, where did you guys say it's available to watch? So just to clarify, it is available on most streaming platforms?
Yeah, it's everywhere really except for Netflix.
Okay.
So Showtime, Amazon.
That's a
Apple
blessing.
TV.
I feel like Netflix has. I just watched that new Glass Onion. Have you seen? It's like the follow-up to Knives Out.
Yeah,
it's been getting great reviews and all that. I was excited to watch it. I liked the first one. I just thought it was terrible, and I don't. It's not
really.
Netflix. I'm sure just bought it. You know, like they didn't necessarily produce it, but they seem to have what's the opposite of a Midas touch lately?
Well, it's also anytime something's a hit, they try to like. Yeah, the pressure is on to make the next one, that kind of thing, you know.
Yeah.
To emulate it. Yeah, and I mean, like, it drives me crazy because, you know, to make decisions based upon an algorithm or what a machine thinks is just the opposite of art and, like, humanity. And, I mean, I'm sure you guys face that with music, too. It's just, you know, the audience is being fed one thing, and so they think they want that one thing, but they don't know what they don't know yet. And it takes, I think, brave artists, not that I'm one of them, but, like, to make something that's fresh. And yeah, Netflix is, I think, just fallen into that trap of the algorithm.
Yeah, we'll talk about a feedback loop. You know, it's also there. It's a kind of homogenization of where you end up with the you know, anyone who's ever experienced feedback on a mic knows that you end up with a single tone oscillating from the speakers going back into the microphone, and that happens, with AI telling.
Also, their algorithms are analyzing what we consume, but not necessarily what we like or fulfill us. Because you can sit there on Instagram, like doom scrolling or Twitter or whatever, and you consume it just like you would sit on the couch eating Cheetos or something for days on end, but it doesn't actually fulfill you. And so the algorithm thinking, oh, this is what people want, and then
that's a good idea. Let's make a short movie about a chef who decides to outsource his menu to an algorithm, and it's like a Michelin star chef, and everyone just ends up eating fucking Cheetos because
yeah, that's exactly right. And I've said it for years, actually, even before the algorithms took over, but certainly since, that we're all being fed junk food, and we think it's like sustenance, and we've forgotten that like real veggies and real proteins are actually better for you and tastier too. But,
so, I mean, on the other side of your work, I guess we'll call it your day job, like just editing work that's not your own, perhaps. You're having to kind of be in the grind of that, I'm sure, on some of the projects you're working on, without, obviously, I don't want you to shit over projects you're working on, but you must be seeing some of that kind of just like a studio making a movie or a TV show for no real reason other than, well, we know this is going to click with the algorithms, and then you're sitting there editing it.
I certainly, I have a lot. Yeah, exactly. And I think, I hate the word content because like, it's just so disposable. Like we're not making content. We do, but like we're trying to make something that is artistic or personal or true to ourselves, and I think the truer it is to ourselves, maybe it'll find another viewer, another listener. So yeah, I've certainly done tons of that, and I've been actually lucky enough in the last little while to, I just made some decisions that I would rather starve a little bit and really work on the things that are important to me and try to and find like-minded people. So I've been working with this producer named Stephen Paul, and he's working with Paramount and Paramount Plus, and so he's doing really brave original content, which is so cool because he still goes through Paramount as far as what his decisions or what his slate is, but they're ultimately his movies. And so this one that I've been editing, I'm actually currently editing right now, it's called Vindicta, and it stars Jeremy Piven and Sean Astin and Alana Kampouris. It's really fresh, it's really cool, and it's brave, and so there's hope. There's hope, and I'm very reinvigorated to be doing something like that while writing my other personal projects.
Yeah, we can get down on it, but I feel like HBO has still managed to put out quality content. Paramount has put out some really great shows. I mean, Paramount is Yellowstone, right? Which I don't know if I would call it great content, but it's at least like it serves its purpose well. For sure popcorn eating excitement, it serves that. So there are still studios out there where there's still humans involved saying, let's make something that's actually worthwhile.
Paramount, they did Beavis and Butthead, the new one. I thought that was really funny.
Did they? Yeah, I didn't see it. Yeah, I mean, by nature, corporations are of course risk averse, but artists aren't, and I think I think there'll be some backlash or a rebalancing of the forces. I hope where they start to trust the human heart instead of the machine head.
You always hear about Ahmet Ertegun, who was the head of Atlantic for decades.
Yep.
And all of the kind of anecdotes are, he would just fund stuff, and some artists would come in and he obviously had some sort of filter, but he wasn't so attached to the outcome. He knew that something would come out of his general process, and he wasn't concerned with the minutia of whether or not this specific project would fulfill every kind of need, financial need. And that's why he ended up funding and producing and some of the greatest albums of all time,
Yeah.
Exactly. I was watching it's not that great, and they kind of distort some of the facts, but the $1 Billion Code, it's about the two German guys who created TerraVision, that they filed a lawsuit against Google Earth or against Google for stealing the source code for Google Earth, which there probably was some theft, but the movie made it out as though it was full on Google just stole it, but it was a little more complicated than that. But what I got from it was the whole time leading up to this innovation of TerraVision, which was one of the first geographic flyover models that they had. they're working with one of the telecom companies in Germany. Like every corporate person along the way had no vision whatsoever, and it's the same story for everyone. It's the same story in music, other than the handful of people that back many horses to see what happens. They literally were scoffing at the ideas of the internet, scoffing at the ideas of wanting to use something like Google Earth. They just could not envision anything valuable in anything like that. And it always takes like the couple brave artists / tech guys. Like these two guys were constantly basically lying about how much they'd already achieved or how quickly they'd be able to achieve it, just to get the funding to kind of keep pushing forward, because no one believed in anything that they were doing.
Well, I just came across this story, and again, it could just be really good marketing, but you guys know the drink Liquid Death, the water. You see it? The founders were doing a podcast interview talking about the origins of that. They did like 6 months of marketing Liquid Death before they even had a product. They literally made a fake can, back of it, what the idea was going to be, and did marketing and got feedback seeing like, okay, this could be a product that could work for whatever reason. So they had zero outlay in terms of to start a water company is like so much physical outlay of costs, but they like, let's just make up a product, see if it'll sell.
What is the IPA that what's the IPA that used to insult people?
Oh, Arrogant Bastard.
Arrogant Bastard. They kind of took like that approach to it. Obviously, because you're not going to sell the health promoting qualities of water more than every other fucking water company out there. So they went with, like it's ironic, obviously.
So this is going back a little bit, but check out this. We're talking about we're all being fed not real food. McDonald's now in North Texas, I guess up near Dallas. And this article's not 100% clear on it. It says fully automated McDonald's location use conveyor belts to serve customers their food. No human interaction is involved.
I think there are people making the food.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to figure out. There's still human beings making the food because they haven't got robots with soft enough hands to flip gentle McDonald's burger. But
not yet.
No, part of me thinks like, there's no way humans are going to go for this. There'll be some resistance because, you meet people like us, like Tony, like the people you feel like you interact with. They're going to say, no, fuck this. We want real food. We want real films, real music. And then the other more like predominant part of me thinks everyone's just going to be like, okay, fine.
Yeah. I think so. I mean, I read that article a couple of days ago, and it's just, it's disturbing because like, again, how social media has supposedly connected us all, but it's actually separated us all into these little echo chambers. And now we're doing it with food. And like, do we ever have to see each other again? And isn't that quite literally the loss of humanity? So,
yeah, we talk about it a lot on this podcast. It's judging evolution by technological progress, and the more technological progress is a sign of humanity evolving, which is. It's quite the opposite, or it's not necessarily the opposite, but it's not the only direction of evolution. So, and this seems to be like the only direction that technology, or at least corporations, want to move in, or maybe not even want to. Maybe they just don't have the choice. It's just some momentum of technological evolving, which is
I think the word
on its own course.
Evolving needs to evolve because it has such a positive connotation to it. Like, it implies like we've evolved, it's better, it's gotten better. But if we accept the materialist view of the universe, that it's all basically random selection, then who fucking cares? Like it's random that it went this way. So we're at where we're at because of random selection, because Newton randomly figured out gravity and we got to where we got. Now, I don't think that means we should throw out the idea of evolution, but it's like a bad word, I think, sometimes to talk about what appears to be completely mechanical, predetermined things that would have happened anyway.
Well, that the original use of the word, or at least the Darwinian use, was that. It was a non-hierarchical description of adaptation. It was a description of things responding to their environment. It wasn't some sort of principle of advancement based on, because that necessarily is subjective.
Yeah, and I know like Dawkins and those people would probably still use it in that sense, but in general usage, there's such a pride associated with how evolved human beings are. which is it's a bit of a paradox to be prideful about something we had no part in, ultimately.
Absolutely.
Well, it kind of reminds me a lot of the conversations we've had with you, Tony. But I don't know if you can talk about it. We didn't talk about this before the air, but you've had a project in mind for a long time, or like the subject matter you've really been interested in terms of making movies about or making a story about. Are you still, if you can talk about it?
Yeah, I can talk about it. I mean, it's something that is certainly sitting on the shelf right now because it's so big, and there's just a couple smaller movies that I want to do before that. But you're talking about the fall of a society?
Yep.
Film?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just like it's always been a topic that has interested me, and that just like you're speaking of, just because we're evolving doesn't mean we're advancing. Doesn't mean like we're actually becoming more civilized. Again, every generation's a reaction from the last, and so yeah, that's certainly a film. I don't want to talk too much about it, but it's still something that's so near and dear to my heart, and it's a like Plato warned about. He used the kind of the metaphor of Atlantis, or whether Solon and the Egyptians believed Atlantis really did exist. This is a film that's kind of about a fall of society, and not in the Don't Look Up type of way, which I enjoyed. But I do think we are heading towards some kind of, I don't want to be negative. I try to be optimistic about this stuff, but like I just don't see how there's not going to be more cameras, more military, less free choice. It just seems like it's because corporations don't let up. They're not going to and governments don't let up. And do you know what I mean? So I just don't really see. And yes, it's evolving. It is. It's literally evolution, as you're speaking of, Danny. But it's not enlightenment. It's certainly not.
No, it's if anything, it's a kind of entropy because with that amount of homogenization, like people think of it as order, but it may be the wrong word because order allows for, a highly ordered system allows for kind of innovation and it allows that system to respond in a new way to a new situation. Whereas I think what's kind of happening is the kind of order that's building up around life now is turning people into the same version of each other, and it's homogenizing thought and behavior. So that to me is more entropy than order, even though superficially it's caused by this societal order.
Well, this sounds like deep thoughts.
Science.
Deep thoughts.
Religion. Music.
Deep thoughts.
Physics. Artificial intelligence. NPR.
Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Deep thoughts.
That word entropy, I've never quite understood it properly. I probably still don't. It's such a complicated subject. But can you explain it a little bit better?
I don't understand it. The only analogy I've ever heard that described it is basically if you put an ice cube in a glass of water and you put that in a closed system where there's no new energy or heat or anything coming in, that everything will reach the same temperature, and that's a highly disordered system where everything is lacking in potential energy. So there's that at some sort of physics level. I think they have like all sorts of weird questions, like entropy may explain why going back in time is not possible, and they relate it to time, and it's out of my fucking depth. But the loss of energy in a system,
right?
Right. And we seem to be living in a system that is exactly that, where, we're all, I don't know, to varying degrees afraid of we don't want to offend anyone. I think everyone is trying to be, of course, good to each other, but, cancel culture and algorithms and machines taking over in certain aspects, it's literally entropy, because we're not going to allow new information in or controversial thought or, I just think we are there.
Also, the algorithms appear to have no tolerance for controversial thought in the way that humans do, because you get a very warped sense of what is controversial, what is cancelable if you go out online.
It's a very narrow range
and if you talk to your friends or not even friends, like just strangers, you find that people aren't quite as uptight as I think we all generally think the internet is. And that's across all topics of discussion.
Yeah.
It's not, they're showing a very narrow spectrum of what human thought represents. And that's what's more scary even than like, because there's some validity to cancel culture. Like people being dicks and saying shit that's unacceptable is always been the case.
Consequence.
Like, yeah.
That's right. Exactly.
Well, it's it's one of those things that people try to turn to their advantage. They try to it's one of those terms, I guess, that everyone feels like they're on the right side of. And it's just easier for me to think of it in historical terms, like, fucking Galileo was canceled, and then so was Hitler. So it's like sometimes it's right, sometimes it's wrong. Just like anything else, there's no obvious answer to anything. There's no clear answer to anything.
Yeah, but I guess the general thing is if you're trying to kill somebody because of their ideas, you're doing it wrong. Like Hitler was trying to kill people because of ideas, because of race. Right. I guess you could, if you're trying to kill people, generally you're wrong. It might be a good starting point. But particularly just about ideas, like that's pretty crazy.
Yeah. I didn't realize, I haven't read the book Fahrenheit 451. I don't know if you guys have, but so I'm not going to spoil anything, but I always thought that, the burning of the books was like done by the government or by the machine, but no, it was the society. Society had actually decided that like new thought wasn't allowed, and they had become kind of indoctrinated into not allowing any, controversial or contrarian thought. It's just fascinating to me that it was society that did it in the book. Well, like what's happening now.
Yeah, or we're no longer at war with East Asia. What's it called? 1984. That's. There's always I think that's gonna be a pretty natural response for people to adopt what is drilled into them.
Well, there's also a natural element of basically self-protection, self-preservation, of not wanting to allow too many different thoughts and or different people into your tribe. Because if you think about it, if you're living, 2 million years ago as early humans, and another tribe comes near you, there's a good chance it's going to end with your tribe being slaughtered and disease and all that. But now it's gotten so complicated. We have apparently, theoretically, the intelligence to not act so immediately and reactionarily that it gets a little more nuanced. But it's still basically written into us, it seems, this xenophobia to all aspects, not just of people, but of ideas, of thought, and that sort of thing.
Well, the bandwidth is the thing that I find kind of frustrating, which is that, and I think Noam Chomsky talks about this, basically, that you narrow the range of discussion, but you promote the vehemence with which people discuss a narrow range of topics.
Yeah.
And so now people, like even the sensation of controversy, or what gives you that sensation, it's like politics or this or that, but where in reality, maybe there are some controversial thoughts that apply to other areas of life. Maybe there's a controversial idea that as to how you should lead your own emotional life, and that kind of range of discussion and that kind of thing is doesn't even register as a blip. Controversy is now fully reserved for politics or something that's
even in the discussion
outside of yourself.
Yeah, even in the discussion of artificial intelligence and automatism, it always ends up being about, the billionaire class is going to do this, and what are we going to be eating? And a radically controversial idea, actually, for everyone, because they refuse to accept it, myself included, is that we are automaton robots. It never goes there. It always goes to the Chinese are doing it, or the Americans are doing. It always goes down to the lowest form of discussion of a concept that should be perhaps aimed directly at yourself in the mirror, man.
Right. Oh yeah, exactly, man. Try to break our own habits. We are fully, locked into our ways of life. Yeah.
Speaking of controversial topics, let me just pull up this news story, because this is a term I had never heard of. Have you guys heard of Nepo babies? Nepo babies?
Mm-mm.
So
recently,
I guess
yes.
Okay. Well, do you want to explain it, because I didn't know what it was, or do you want me to just read the article?
Well, go for it. Yeah, go for it first.
So here's a CNN article saying they're trying to pick their word of the year, They picked gaslighting, I guess. Which
it's like what they do to people.
No, not CNN. Merriam-Webster did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, CNN gaslights. They should have chosen Nepo or Nepo babies, based on the passionate debate that the term triggered in the past week.
Nepotism. Oh,
yeah, okay. It's Nepo, short for nepotism. Hence, a Nepo baby refers to a child of famous parents who benefit from family connections in entertainment and other adjacent fields. And I guess there's been a bit of a controversy about nepotism babies, like, because people that have famous parents are getting more advantage.
Yeah, we should kill their kids.
Right?
Right.
It's what they want. It's what the masses want. Yeah, it's crazy to me. I mean, it's hard enough, whether your parents were successful in the industry that you choose to go into or not, it's really hard to make it in any industry because you got to do it on your own volition and your own talent. I mean, I think, like, to me, and it gets back to the McDonald's, there's a lack of, so they say, there's a lack of kids that want to work because they'd rather just be influencers on the internet. And there's all the corporations who would rather have 4 more yachts instead of paying wages properly. So it's the perfect storm for then a generation to be essentially jealous of anyone who's accomplishing anything. Mm-hmm. And I just think it's kind of gross because it's hard. Just because your parent made it doesn't automatically, I know many artists who actually don't even come near what their parents did and actually self-destruct in that kind of way. And so,
I know some
I don't know.
people like that.
It's also just this nepotism babies thing, and the whole idea of this is such a virtue signal of saying I didn't get here by myself. Like, here's the bottom line is that no one got anywhere by themselves. It's a giant interconnected system. Clearly, there are extreme examples we can see of people that have way more advantage in the physical world, in the monetary world than other people. Like, no one's denying that. But to be constantly worried about, where your kids got, or are they going to have some advantage? It's absurd.
Also, it's just the relativity is constantly lost on people because it's the only time this subject matter is really controversial is when basically Western white privileged people are talking about other Western white privileged people who haven't had as, or they didn't get as lucky as them. It's like there are 2 billion people in the world living on $1 a day or something like that. Yeah. There's however many people in Yemen that just starved to death over the last few years because of America's wars. And now you want to talk about Charlie Sheen and his brother Emilio having their nepo babies because of Martin Sheen, and they shouldn't have got. It's absolutely fucking ridiculous. There's the relativity of billions of people starving to death and worrying about one specific culture having a little bit more advantages in certain
I think it's just literal titillation, and it's a way to tickle that feeling of there's a pleasure in envy. There's a kind of pleasure in that, and in resentment. Resentment is secretly pleasurable.
It's a currency, in a way. Yeah, it becomes a currency amongst people. And the thing is, whether it's Hollywood or the music industry, of course, there's going to be attract like, and artists attract artists, and if it's in the family, it tends to be maybe what the child does. But and I'm not a mathematician or a scientist, noted. But I'm sure 90% are newcomers who pushed through their own adversity, who were starving artists. I mean, it's just such an isolated window into, clearly, again, a bit of envy.
And also, like you said, there are cases of nepotism or basically just a family name leading to success, especially in the more in the financial world. That's quite obvious that there have been families running the world since the beginning of time.
Yep.
But in the artistic world, which that article seemed to be kind of a little bit more focusing on, there have been cases of it, but then there's also been the opposite where you see like John Lennon's kids. You couldn't ask for a more famous, talented lineage to come from, and they basically didn't they didn't do anything with that in terms of like they didn't capitalize on it in some unfair way. Bob Dylan's son.
Absolutely.
You have the opposite of it, like Chet Hanks is a way better actor than Tom Hanks, as we've previously discussed on the podcast.
But yeah, there are so many examples of that for a very, very short period of time, maybe you can have some success because of a name or because of some family lineage. But if it's not merit based, it quickly disappears.
Well, that's what this article was bringing up. Basically, is this a meritocracy? Well, first of all, basically not really. The world isn't a meritocracy.
Merit is
other than like ultimately, but again, you'd have to believe in some kind of order because merit can only be based on the concept of order.
I think there are genuine. Is that guy Nassim Taleb? He's always got some certain interesting takes on stuff. He's got, I think, either him or someone else wrote an article called "Surgeons Shouldn't Look Like Surgeons," and the whole point was that aesthetics and your preconceived ideas influence the surgeon you choose. Like you want them to look like they're cast on ER, and really they should look like a fucking butcher, and they should be, that's too much influenced in the competence selection. And same with, he's always making a point, like if you ever have to hire a lawyer, hire someone who was graduated top of their class from a shitty college. Don't hire someone from an Ivy League, because that Ivy League, what's it called? The fact that you went to an Ivy League can hide incompetence for a long, long time.
Well, I guess, is he also getting at the idea that it's sexual selection preference that is basically that machine that's running in our head constantly, basically trying to find a mate ultimately. It's like a subroutine that runs in our brain. Yeah, but it's like that does influence so much. It's, tall, good-looking people do better in the world by external measures,
Right.
And yeah, it's such a crippling thing ultimately to deciding most things, because like you're saying, who fucking cares if your doctor's good looking?
Right. It's, I would say in the world in the artist world, there's obviously a leg up you get from nepotism. There's also certain legs down, which is that people aren't not receptive to you as a person because you're sometimes a bad impression of whoever is your shoe-in. I mean, in our case, I remember our dad had so many record label contacts and nothing came of it, which was very disappointing because we wanted success way earlier than we ever found our a little bit of success. And it was the irony to us was that those contacts kind of woke up a little bit once we had some shit going on our own, which is because it's fair enough. It's like, why
normal?
Yeah.
And again, I don't want to disparage them, but yeah, they follow trends. I mean, again, there's very few Ahmeds out there who can listen to something and see something. Okay, that's fresh. But I would imagine it can open the door, maybe having a contact in family or friends or something like that. But it doesn't keep you in the room.
No, like Prince Andrew.
Ultimately, got to be a meritocracy.
Prince Andrew was just kicked out of the royal family, and
it could happen to anyone.
Yeah,
as the lost.
What did he ever do?
As the last possible option, they're like, all right, fine,
right,
dude. I think he's the normal one, and they're like, okay. I know it's not fun. Yeah. I know it's fun, but you really got to take one for the team, and you got to be the public face of our fucked upness, because the other shit we're doing, no one can know about.
Yeah, maybe, right? I know. It's pretty messed up. Yeah. I don't follow the royals very well, but I'm aware of that.
Can we just talk real quick? Because every year, Neil deGrasse Tyson tweets his little things about Christmas to be a fucking Grinch or whatever. And I get it. He's trolling, but I just don't think that trolling also doesn't mean you're an asshole. Like, he does these kind of tweets. In case you were wondering, for Santa in a single 24-hour Earth night to deliver presents to all those who celebrate Christmas, he must visit 25,000 homes per second. And it's like, from anyone else, this would be fine, but I have a particular problem with Neil deGrasse Tyson for some reason. And I thought this response from Andrew Schultz, the comedian, was awesome. He just wrote, King Dork's latest contribution to science. And I think that a certain level of bullying, non-physical and non-ultimately harmful, is really helpful. And like more people need to I don't know, bullying's like the wrong word. Like it shouldn't be bad spirited, but like more people that are equals to Neil deGrasse Tyson. Like he needs other, not just random people on Twitter telling him to shut the fuck up. He needs like
that's right,
physicists coming out and just saying, "Shut up, Neil."
Yeah, it's like you said, he is trolling. He did this last year, and he got a massive. I think he was the top trending thing on Twitter that last Christmas because of a similar thing he said, and everyone was like, "Jesus, you're fun to have at a party. Like, just enjoy Christmas for what it is." And he clearly capitalized on that this time. He realizes he's going to get a lot of retweets, and he's doing it. But it's actually everything that's wrong with science, I think, because it's reducing. Like, let's all accept that Santa is actually not real, right?
Okay, try it on.
But the story and the mystery and the myth of Santa, if you were to actually investigate it, is way, way more deep than what it's become now, which is some commercialized, holiday that starts on November 27th after Thanksgiving. It's an incredibly deep story that's probably worth investigating, and the only way a reductionist scientist can actually investigate it is by calculating how many homes he would have to visit every second to make this story real, instead of saying what is the depth or the subconscious aspect of this story. And that bleeds into like everything. There's no investigation of any type of mystery in the universe because everything's figured out. Everyone knows how we got here, why we're here, and if you don't know that, then you just haven't been following the science.
I think what it is there's a common thread between science advocates who dismiss the utility of a myth.
Yeah.
Right.
And even though they've built up all sorts of myths, whereas a lot of other. Richard Feynman wasn't like that. So many other
Carl Sagan wasn't like that.
Wheeler wasn't like that.
The real greats haven't been like that.
So I mean, Tony, that's obviously something for you. I think we've talked about this idea of myth and story being so important, and it is. It's such a critical way that is not. It appears to have some real utility to human thought. The use of stories for understanding beyond entertainment in any way. It's so profound, the effect it has on our brains.
Absolutely. I mean, I always said that, growing up, and I've said it at different like film festivals, but story was in some ways, you think about being around the cave people around the fire, and you would talk about other lands or other worlds, or, whether they were doing mushrooms and seeing things, the shamans. It was a form of time travel, a form of almost of immigration without having seen another culture. You could talk about other things, and it could just expand, I think, the human psyche. And I think myth is so much, in some ways, truer than like literal reductionist, surface structure language. Myths penetrate, story penetrates. And it's funny with Neil deGrasse Tyson. I have my own unique annoyance with him because he just shits all over the UFO stuff, which, as some people know, I'm okay to be made fun of too, but we saw something that was undeniable as far as something in the sky that was not just like a star. My family and I saw something in South Africa.
Well, can you tell that story?
Yeah. Just before we immigrated, we went up to just by Zimbabwe to a game reserve. And in the daytime, they took us out in like this big open Jeep. The driver, the person sitting shotgun, literally with a shotgun, just in case with the animals. And then like a row of 5 and a row of 5. And we had a family of 7 with us. So we went out in the day to see the daytime animals. And they were all super cool, got lots of photos. And then we went to sleep. And they woke us up at 2 a.m. to go see the nocturnal animals. And you got to understand, there was nothing around. It's just desert, it's not the Saharan desert because that's not where that is, but there's no cities, there's no mountains, there's nothing. And probably 4 a.m, I'm sitting in the back next to another family. Well, my dad and everyone was sitting in front. There was just a large amount of South African commotion. Like, holy shit, Jesus, God's cross, look at that, yes! and we turn around, and like quite literally, if the back of my whole wall here is the entire horizon, the size of my head was this massive like football stadium object in the sky. and my dad still remembers it having and I do too, 6 rows of flashing lights, perfect cylinder with like the top and the bottom. And we got out of the Jeep, and my dad like said, "Yes, it's like a skyscraper on its side." Skyscraper on its side to our American audience. And we don't know if we were looking at it for a minute or 5 minutes. He was just sort of like stunned, like paralysis almost. And then in a nanosecond, out of the atmosphere, gone. Huh. And I mean, really shocking, like really, really shocking. And, you know, I don't know if it was military or if it was mass hallucination or if it was actually something from another system. I mean, we don't know what this whole place is, of course. But yeah, it affected us, my family, greatly. We didn't actually talk about it for a long time because it was just, I don't know. And especially for me to not talk about it, because I'm an obsessive type of personality. When I get into something, I really get into something. And I was already into Spielberg and E.T. and Close Encounters. So it's kind of bizarre that we all compartmentalized it so much.
Is it because it is so shocking to the psyche that no one has any answers, and it kind of unifies children and parents in their not knowingness, you know?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. In fact, it's only a few years when I was around 15 that I started to dream about it again. And then I was like, guys, do you remember that? And they all did, and I actually got them to all, you know, my siblings don't remember it. They might remember it just from the stories we've told, but they were much younger than me. I was 12 at the time. But my parents draw the same picture that I draw. And my grandfather did too. He's now passed, but we all can draw the same thing. And, you know, so I don't know. It's certainly a mystery, but a mystery that Neil deGrasse Tyson, with all due respect, he just has like no tolerance. Like he thinks he does know everything. And that is bizarre to me for a scientist to say that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is really bizarre. I mean, I've never had a personal experience with that, other than maybe one time, and it wasn't nearly as significant as that. I was in Kelowna, BC, and looking up at the stars. There was a parallelogram of stars, so 4 stars off-centered, like a square or a rectangle, and they were blinking, but not the way stars blink or flicker. They were, and it was a perfectly clear sky, no clouds whatsoever, and these stars were disappearing for 3 or 4 seconds, and then showing back up, and then disappearing and coming back. And I thought, my first thought was, if I was a UFO trying to disguise myself, what would I do? And I would just, what's the word?
Dematerialize.
Yeah, or just put camouflage myself cloak myself as the stars above, and that was the only thing I've ever seen. But
very common, actually. That's very common.
That particular thing, you mean?
Yeah, that's been recorded by Navy pilots now. Like they're seeing the same thing. Besides like the Tic Tacs and the things that they're seeing what they are either calling a cloaking device or that these vehicles are transmedium. And I mean, it's so sci-fi to us, but you know, so was a fax machine and Wi-Fi only 30, 40, 50 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, so we don't know.
There are too many people. I mean, other than like that tiny little experience, we've met a lot of people that have had a similar experience to what you've had, and the same feeling, the same exact feeling, and the same also not talking about it. Even one family I know where the grandfather was in the military and in a higher up, more like secret branch of the military, just did not want to talk about it for decades.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, they weren't allowed to. I mean, now they can. And in fact, just to circle back, you know, one of the shocking things was 2 years ago. I've always been looking like South Africa UFO, like who else like saw something, and then I typed in Zimbabwe, Mabula Game Reserve, and sure enough, in I think it was either 1990 or maybe 91, possibly 92. There's a very famous daytime school sighting.
Oh Zimbabwe. I've seen that. I've seen footage of that.
Yeah, I mean, these kids all, and the teachers all saw these crafts land just by the school, and the little kids went out to go see the craft, and these little men or little creatures were doing whatever they were doing with the earth, and You know, so it's something might have happened in that area. That who knows? Maybe we saw the same type of thing.
Yeah,
whatever it is.
I think who the fuck knows? Who knows? And that like, why pretend to know, and why need to know? What is the need? Like, why do you need to have the answer to it?
Well, it's also strange coming from scientists now that would, like, mathematically speaking, most people are starting to accept or project that the universe has intelligent life in it. And that probably systems much closer to us have intelligent life, just because of the sheer numbers of planets, suns, everything. We can't fathom just how many, like what a billion suns is, or a billion planets.
I like the Calvin and Hobbes line, which is that the fact that we haven't been visited is proof that the universe has intelligent life.
Right. Good point. Yeah, exactly. Roll up your windows when you come by Earth, for sure. Lock your doors. Yeah.
Well, I'm just personally glad in this conversation that we can all agree that Neil deGrasse Tyson, at least for a certain extent and on certain things, should just shut up. I wanted to pull this up real quick, Tony. You posted this on your Instagram the other day. Can you see that?
Oh, yeah.
So this is Vindicta. This is what you were talking about working on. That is a screenshot, I'm assuming, of your edit. Is that the entire film, or is that just a collection of scenes? Could you zoom out that far?
That actually is the entire film. The more you zoom in, you see that there's actually 1,000 more edits, like per kind of square inch. It's insane, and that's just what it takes. Volition, I think that has like 39 audio tracks. Volition had like 87. The films take a lot of work, and but it's 1,000 little edits or 100,000, but it's one at a time. So when you're in the process, it doesn't seem as overwhelming as that looks to be.
I wanted to ask, do you know this stat? How many edits are there typically in like a modern film? Do you know that number? I mean, I could look it up, but I was wondering if you kind of knew off the top of your head.
No, I've heard it's like 3 to 5 seconds now is what the requirement is, because we all have ADD and we all have, Twitter-fied our minds where we can only speak in short form. But back in the day, much longer between cuts. I don't know the exact numbers.
I always think of that, like Network is one of my favorite movies. And, the scene where Howard Beale goes and meets Ned Beatty, it's really slow. Getting into the office is really slow, and it's so effective at building this anticipation, and then the speech and all that kind of stuff. It's just like that ominousness cannot be achieved quickly. There's no way to do that. No,
and it's so cool, right? It's so purposeful, and then it makes the cut important. It doesn't make the cut just like a random tool. And like there's something about not cutting, and I'm sure it's the same in the music or something like that, where like you want to actually, again, have the audience experience claustrophobia, or you can't escape from this shot, and that's doing something to the psyche. And then by the time you do cut, it's a release. It's tension release. I'm sure it's the same as in music.
It's like going to a whole concert of dubstep. Dubstep at the end of a long build-up, fine, cool, like the choppy rhythms and everything, but you can't listen to it for an hour. I kind of wanted, while we're talking about this, do you guys know who John Cazale is? If you don't know him by name, you'll know. Yeah. I wanted to talk. You guys must all have someone you think is criminally underrated, and I know he's respected in the industry. But if you look at this is his theater career. He died really, really young from cancer. He was in, I guess, a short film, a movie called NYPD. Then he does The Godfather, The Conversation, Godfather 2, Dog Day Afternoon, Deer Hunter, and then Godfather 3. They used clips of him.
It's incredible.
It's
only Oscar-winning films. That's what he told his agent. Only cast me in Oscar-winning films. It's amazing.
It's truly insane, and he really was brilliant. Like when people think of Godfather, they obviously think of Al Pacino or Brando and that, and they were brilliant also. But him as Fredo, it's just like magical. And then him in The Deer Hunter also. Just the way he captures that character. Are there any other people you guys think of when you think of like an underrated actor?
Oliver Platt. I like Oliver Platt a lot.
Yeah.
He's in a lot of stuff. He's in but he's always bit roles. I can't even always ever remember his name. I don't know.
I feel like Gene Hackman. I mean, all of these people are huge stars, but they still. He's not. He never comes up. You say, "What? Name your top 5 actors." The obvious ones, and for good reason. De Niro, Meryl Streep, all that bunch. But it's like Gene Hackman in The Birdcage. Like that's one of his best roles. Just his awkwardness, how uncomfortable he is. He just plays it so perfectly.
Funny.
Yeah, basically Lex Luthor to that.
Yeah, exactly. Right, Lex Luthor to that. My grandfather, who just recently actually passed, Michael Dulesky, rest in peace. But he looked like Gene Hackman. So, and especially in The Birdcage, and especially the character who's just very kind of a bit more refined. Who's forced to be a fish out of water. Yeah, really fun. Great actor.
Patricia Arquette, maybe. I think she's kind of.
She's really good.
Yeah, I mean, she's not underrated, but she's just. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Tony, have you seen Severance?
I have not. No, I hear it's incredible.
Yeah, that's a show. Finally, something new and fresh. I think in the last few years of TV making. It's a little bit slow to start, which every good show is always like that. You kind of have to give it some time and patience. But she's in that, and she's freaking awesome in that.
I'll definitely. It's on the list for sure.
Yeah,
right at the top actually.
Yeah,
see it.
This is not related, but you also posted something on your Instagram, which maybe is an extension of Deep Thoughts. You was Christmas, and you said, I'm going to butcher the tag that you said, but it was like, what does a Jesus-loving Hebrew something do on Christmas? Naturally, like cover a Christmas song. We should mention to our audience that you're a musician as well, singer and songwriter, and you've been posting a lot of music to your Instagram.
Well, in fact, when I was catching up with Tony before this, I said, I wish we enjoyed music as much as you do, because he's posting way more music content than we are, way more enthusiastic about it.
But my rebuttal was, well, I wish I was enjoying film and TV as much as maybe other people do. Because, I think we've all been affected by just, again, the changing landscape. And I don't think it's permanent. I do think it's going to go through a cycle. But, I got into making movies because I only wanted to make certain movies. And I'm sure you guys with music, like, you have your genre, your brand. And I don't want to, like, water down or cater towards something else. I'd rather be brave enough and stick to it. So, but anyway, point being, like, music is sort of sweet relief for me. It's just a hobby. But as a kid, before I fell in love with Spielberg, I fell in love with Neil Diamond and Bryan Adams first. And so I've always played music since I was I think 11.
Yeah. And so what? This is more on the Deep Thoughts aspect of it. Yeah, but explain the thought process or what was going through your mind, because you're, like you said, you're a Jesus-loving Hebrew and ideas. I forgot the exact quote that you had.
The quote was, what's a secular?
Secular.
I'm not religious. Secular/spiritual, because I am spiritual and I'm very curious about this universe. Jesus-loving Hebrew to do on Christmas Eve. We'll naturally cover a Christmas song. And
I should add, you've started lighting
the menorah.
The menorah, right? You're saying that's the first time you started doing that in your kind of in your adult life, probably.
Yeah, I've always just been very, like, again, non-dogmatic, and from a young age, I bought my first Bible when I was 7 because I wanted to, and I wanted to read like Genesis. And I remember asking my mom, "What do you mean the world was made in 7 days?" And she's like, "Well, whoever wrote this maybe didn't understand metaphor. They didn't understand, symbolism." And so she got me thinking philosophically at a young age about all these concepts. So I've never taken any of these old books literally. I see them as, and again, I think mythology is truer than the literary word very often. So for me, I've just always been open-minded about the many teachers who've walked this earth. And, I either don't like any of the religions or I like all of them, because I think they're all just... I think Carl Sagan said once that, not everyone sees every piece of the sky, and that's why we need each other. And I think that holds true to all cultures and faiths, and in even the lack of faith. If you're an atheist, like, that's an important aspect of... Don't just take things for face value because somebody else said something. I think. So...
Do you find as you're getting older that, like, rituals and traditions start to have a little more meaning, even though on the surface they might just be kind of like an unconscious repetition of whatever we were raised with, but that like as the older you get, they start to have a little bit more depth to them.
I think so, and I think, but still in a very kind of non-dogmatic, superstitious way. I think tapping into, again, to kind of learn, because I've been very defiant around sort of my own culture, which is Judaism. But it's 5,783 years old, and I was like, wow, like that's a lot older than 2022, and sort of. And so maybe some aspects of it were onto something, and of course a lot, because I just think religion is the ultimate separator, and I don't think that's what it should be. So yeah, I'm starting to just kind of delve into what was the symbolism getting to, and that there's something about, again, like I have like this kind of skin and this kind of eyes, but like my mom did like a 23andMe test, and like she's from Israel 2,000 years ago. She has the blood of the Ashkenazi Jews, and so we know that we were colonized 2,000 years ago by the Romans, and that through 2,000 years of persecution, Jews have never been allowed to ever own property, run businesses, do anything up until about 78 years ago. And so it's just, I don't know, it just finally landed on me that that's the story of all of us, actually. All of us have gone through some kind of, everyone on the planet has been the receiver and, has been bullied and has been the bully. And I think it's incumbent upon us to sort of penetrate those stories to see how, aren't we all trying to escape from a pharaoh, whether it's an internal psychological habit that we have, or the oppressors who run every corporation and do run the planet? Again, the myths, I think if you allow them to, can penetrate much deeper than just the religion itself.
I think Donald Trump did one of those 23andMe that it turns out his entire lineage have been pricks. So I take your point. Yes, everyone's been on both sides of it, but he's been it's interesting because you look at a person like him and you can see great trauma in him, like somewhere in there, somewhere in his lineage, someone is trying to overcome something. And it's a kind of interesting thought, like to joke about, but like that this history builds up in you, and it's a good external way to look back, like literally what was my history, who are the people that I came from, what was that history, but then also perhaps in a more symbolic or metaphysical sense, like how did I acquire all the weight or baggage that I carry with me now, and how can I understand it better?
Well, that's right. And like you said, when you posted that you were lighting the menorah, kind of for the first time, that tradition or that culture, like you said, has been around for 5,000+ years, and probably much, much older than that even, and and in different form.
Exactly.
And that there must be some, because there must be some genetic memory in everything. Like we grew up non-religious as well, so very similar to you, I would imagine that. But we came from like the Greek Orthodox tradition. So, but I had the same thing. I was like resentful of Christmas and things like that, and Easter. But now, recently, we've been celebrating Easter a little bit more, and just the process of like making all the Easter feast and doing things like that. You can start to sense that there's some memory in that, just like humans have memory of anything, instinctual. Maybe like for 5, 10, 15, 20,000 years, like the longer they keep pushing, or the further they keep pushing humanity back, and rituals and traditions, that there must be some memory that gets into almost our instincts when it comes to those things.
Well, I think if you practice any particular tradition that has lasted thousands of years, like for instance, like a Lent tradition in Orthodox Christianity, and then fasting across all forms, it's like you only need to leave certain descriptions. Here's what you do: 40 days. We're going to cut out certain number of foods. We eat once a day or whatever. You almost don't have to say any more, because if someone just observes that tradition with no understanding, does it for a few years, it's like they will come to their own subjective understanding that is imbued in the tradition itself, without necessarily any cultural or temporal superimposition of ideas on it, because there's lots of ideas about fasting or Greek Pascha or Passover in Judaism. Like, you can read 3,000 books about it, or you could do it and see what could I learn from this.
Yeah, it's an effort outside of the ordinary, which is probably more important than any of the other ideas associated with it.
Yeah, I mean, sort of related to all of this, when I sort of had, again, bought my first Bible when I was 7, and I started to meditate when I was like 16. And I had these experiences all through like my childhood that now they would call like sort of body paralysis or like astral traveling or like lucid dreaming. And I was having those like consciously at a young age. But I used to be able to, when I was 16, 17, induce that state really quickly. I could sort of lie in a bed and I could like, do things to my toes and my arms, and the numbness would take over, and then I would be awake within my dream very, very quickly. And I would explain that to people. And they're like, just do this with your toes, do this with your arms. But like, you can't do it through rote dogma. And it's the same as, I think, like religion or any spiritual, endeavor. It has to come, like, as unique as our own fingerprints are, you have to do it yourself. You have to go within. And so these are guides. I think these symbols are guides. These stories are guides. But you have to go within.
Yeah.
The other thing I would say is, like, what's really just kind of fucks me up is that, again, like, so I learned, like, I really dig Jesus and what he stood for. And I love the Buddha, and I love, many of these great teachers. But so, like, so I'm like part Hindu, part Buddhist, part Jewish, part Christian. I've learned a lot about the Islamic faith from some of my best friends, and that has.
You sound like you should live in Venice, California, Tony.
Take me there, and I'm wearing a space shirt. But
sounds like you should sounds like you should move to Austin, Texas.
Honestly, I know. Well, count me in. Yeah, but so I've always really like been into like reincarnation. I don't know if it's true at all, but so I'm like, well, so I'm Jewish this life, but I don't believe I've been Jewish every life. But I think the biggest test is like to be equally kind to all people at all times, because we're all, as unique as our fingerprints are, we're all ultimately going to the same place, which is we don't know, and we're here to be good to each other. And so I see everything kind of very, very equal.
Is there anything in Judaism, from your understanding of it, that would be kind of a corollary, whatever that word is, corollary?
I know that word.
To reincarnation, because in the Christian faith, you can kind of see the story of Jesus and resurrection as loosely connected to certain reincarnation ideas. Is there something like that that's applicable?
Yeah. There's they don't talk about it in sort of the more surface elements of the Torah, but there's the Kabbalah, which is like really old as well, which talks about, I don't know, the creation of the universe, and like it's just such an absurd idea that anything was created from nothing, but then how do you even square any of that? It's really difficult for our minds. But they do believe that there is, it's really complex actually. Certain rabbis that I've like listened to believe that this earth itself is of course, is the physical manifestation of the thought realm. And so as tangled or as clean as your thoughts are, so shall you see the world. And then you'll create the world in your image, which again gets into God creating the world in its image, using God very loosely. But they don't really talk about you coming back, and not that I've seen. And I don't know if I'm just extrapolating, of course I am, our educational system onto the universe. It's like, oh, I failed grade 7, well, I just get to do it again. That may not be true. I don't know. But I'd like to think it is.
Well, I think even in Hinduism, there's a Western and a very superficial idea of like, the Hindus believe in reincarnation. Like, we come back as a good cow or a bad cow or a frog. Like, it's a very surface look at that. So, I think it is perhaps more related to what you're saying in terms of the incarnation out of the realm of thoughts, or of the idea of the logos of God into some physical manifestation. That is perhaps more what it's getting at.
Yeah, and even as you download your beliefs into your kids, or your, how like attracts like, I think pay attention to the thoughts, because the thoughts are going to create the actions, and the actions are going to create the ripple effect through physical reality. And so, whether it's me coming back, if I litter now, I'll come back in 300 years to a world that's littered. So or I don't come back, but certainly my grandkids will live in a world that's littered. And so kind of the same thing, really. Just what do you, there by the grace of the goodness, am I born into a system that is perfect or imperfect? And so, I don't know, I fail all the time, but I try to think about that and live that way.
This is why I've outsourced the downloading of thoughts into my daughter to Jeff Bezos. It's a subscription service, a part of Prime. That way, if something goes wrong, I'm hands off. It wasn't me.
There you go. No, I think it makes a lot of sense.
Well,
that's funny.
Why don't we finish up the conversation today with music? We always like to do this section at the end of the podcast, and we'll talk about songs and lyrics that we've picked this week. I'll go first. I came across this little video of someone interviewing. It wasn't even an interview. Just some guy walked up to 50 Cent on the street like years ago and said, "Who's your favorite rapper?" And he said KRS-One. And it reminded me, like, I always knew who KRS-One was. I'd listened to him. And I was like, well, let me go check out, why does 50 Cent call him his favorite rapper? And it's because he's fucking cool as shit. I'd never really gotten into him. I kind of knew about him in the back of my mind. And like his big song that he's very well known for is called Sound of the Police. And it is fucking cool. It's like that classic 90s hip hop. The grooves were still being sampled from old records where they're real, but also new. And so, yeah, for me, that's definitely an artist I'm going to take a deeper dive on. Come across some videos of him, and he's also out there in terms of his thought, and I mean that in a good way. Like, he's on some real deep conspiracy and spiritual thought. So I'm definitely going to check out KRS-One more.
Cool.
Then for my lyric for this week, I've been watching that show on Showtime called George and Tammy. It's about George Jones and Tammy Wynette. Pretty decent show, but I keep coming back to him. Living out here in Texas is like, it just makes so much more sense, these sad country lyrics when you drive down the hill country here. So this lyric is from a song called I've Aged 20 Years in 5. As I look in the mirror this morning on some dirty old restroom wall, it took a while to realize it's really me there inside, because I've aged 20 years in 5. I recall when I looked so much younger, and it wasn't so long ago, but one night of sleeping to 4 nights of wine and you'll age 20 years in 5. And it's kind of the same old country, I drink too much song, but he just has such a way with that. Like, I don't think I've heard anyone do sad drinking song better than him. Maybe the certain Irish old songs like that.
George Jones.
Yeah, George Jones.
Yeah, he's got another one, Choices. Have you listened to that song?
I think so, yeah.
I've had choices. And then, like, there were voices, told me right from wrong. If I'd listened, I'd, wouldn't be living and dying with the choices I've made.
Yeah.
And he's got a line in there. He's like, I found out at a young age I like drinking. And he's just, truly, because it's not coming from a fake place. He was a proper.
This show I wouldn't say is a great show just like from a TV show standpoint, but it's a fascinating story because I didn't know much about him at all. And it's fucking wild and crazy shit, dude. Like old school stories, not like today. Like it was just
What's
wild.
the name of it again?
I think it's just called George and Tammy, I believe. It's he and Tammy Wynette were married.
Yeah.
And two legend, king and queen of country music, basically.
Yeah.
So let's go to Dylan. What'd you do this year?
Lyrics.
I did, for the song I did Elbow, Grounds for Divorce. I haven't listened to this in a long time, but it came up on Shuffle. And it's just an English band that never really, really broke worldwide. They had like a couple hits in England, but it was kind of for me, it sounds like the start of alternative music. It was much earlier than like the stuff when we were touring in 2014, and it had a similar vibe to it. Anyway, I won't say much more. Just go listen to it. Pretty cool song. Good guitar riffs and drum, kind of that stomp sound that became very popular. And then for the lyric, I did. It's a traditional, but Johnny Cash does a version of it that Trent Reznor produced. And then I heard one of the very, very early versions of it, and I'll try to find it someplace. It's like a barbershop quartet or quintet that sings it, and it gives it so much more weight when you hear that. And Johnny Cash is actually too. Anyway, the lyric is, God's gonna cut you down. Well, my goodness gracious, let me tell you the news. My head's been wet with the midnight dew. I've been down on bended knee talking to the man from Galilee. He spoke to me in the voice so sweet. I heard the shuffle of the angel's feet. Or I thought I heard the shuffle of the angel's feet. He called my name and my heart stood still when he said, John, go do my will. Go tell that long-tongued liar. Go and tell that midnight rider. Tell the rambler, the gambler, the backbiter. To tell him that God's going to cut him down. Tell him that God's going to cut him down.
Cool.
Yeah. And I say this, the discussion about religion is there's too much good music that's come out of religion to throw it all out, there's just too much of it. You can't say that it means nothing when it has been the inspiration for so much of what is great and profound art,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Here.
Danny.
What have I got here? I got All I'm Missing Is You, Don Williams, just for the sound of the record. It's incredible. I mean, a good song and all that stuff, but that it's just perfectly recorded. Really nice, dry 70s recording. And I've been into like drum sounds and guitar sounds, bass sounds lately, and vocal sounds, and I find them so impossible to get right, and modern records don't get them right at all, especially vocals. And this record sounds perfect. And then, what have I got here? Oh, this is Warren Zevon, Lawyers, Guns, and Money. Really great track. Good driving song. And I like, the lines are just funny, This one's, now I'm hiding in Honduras, I'm a desperate man. Send lawyers, guns, and money, the shit has hit the fan. It's just it's kind of funny.
That sounds like the John McAfee
story. I do
Yeah.
think of he's like the embodiment of that.
Yeah.
McAfee. Have you seen that thing where the Vice did about him in Belize?
Yeah, I haven't seen it. I'm kind of loosely familiar with the story, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Vice followed him around while he was running from the police in Belize and all that kind of. He's a maniac. That guy. Well, he was a maniac. Yeah.
All right, Tony. You said we're going to make fun of you for this song.
Oh, yeah.
So you've been building it up. Let's hear it.
Oh no. Yeah, well, so the song that I chose is actually a song that, again, from the first artist that I ever loved, Neil Diamond. Again, make fun of me all you want. But it's a song that still just really pumps me up and is a reminder of how far we've all come to get here. And the song is, I'm so sorry. It's the Canadian in me. The song is America. And as a kid, I used to just love this song because it's about, Neil Diamond and the jazz singer. It was this, he didn't want to be a rabbi. He wanted to be a pop star. And so he was, shunned from his community, but he went out and he made it. And it's just about, I guess, like taking the leap of faith in yourself. And America, the dream, America, the idea, not necessarily America in all it has become, but just the idea that we've all come from far off shores, from whatever our homelands used to be, to make a better world. And I think that we can still do that. So the song still kind of pumps me up. So there you go.
I mean, Neil Diamond has been one of those artists that has been like a bit of a laughing, like the butt of a joke
caricature.
Artist, for so long. But like Sweet Caroline is just undeniably a fucking great song. And then I came across
Caroline.
Good songwriter.
What did I say?
Carolina.
Oh, wait, it's Sweet Caroline.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's what I thought I said.
Yeah, you said Carolina.
You
okay.
said.
No. But he did a cover of originally a French song called Ne me quitte pas, which is If You Go Away, and it's a brilliant version. So he's been on my list to like delve deeper into and go check out, because you write so many artists off because of a first impression of them.
Randy Newman, that just happened to me with Randy Newman. I just heard all the wrong Randy Newman.
Right.
And it's just some cool shit he's done.
Well, it's also that Family Guy episode. Sometimes a parody can be so brutal and it's funny. That one where he's like Peter's walking up to the apple tree and they're singing a Randy Newman song about it, and it just kind of kills it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
really
dangerous.
Sticks. No, exactly. No, I actually recommend Rick Rubin produced an album of Neil Diamond's called 12 Songs. And so this is like way later in his career. It's probably like 10 years ago, 2012. But they're just kind of like, the same thing that he did with Johnny Cash, and just kind of got to the soul and the wound of the artist to create these new songs that are not like these like showman songs. Really, really beautiful.
I'll check that out. That sounds interesting.
Yeah, that's cool.
Did you see there I Ruined It with Jingle Bells mixed with Hurt?
Yeah. Okay.
No.
So to explain what that is this a TikTok account where the guy
Melodynes
pulls out the vocals from famous songs and mixes them with other songs and ruins them. And he does it so brilliantly that he's destroyed like everything. It's hard to describe. Just go check out There I Ruined It.
Yeah.
I think he's on Instagram and TikTok and everything. Wow. Really hilarious thing. Before we wrap up today, can you tell us what you're working on next, and what you're working on now and next? What's coming up?
Sure, but I'll also give you the lyric that I chose. I just realized.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Too. All good. It's not as it's really just a short little phrase, I suppose, not even a long lyric here or sentence, but it's from the 1975, a band that I love. It's okay if you don't. Matty Healy. I know. Can you tell that I still have my trauma of fitting in? Okay. You can't tell. You can't tell at all. But the lyric is give yourself a try. And I swear if I'm not careful, it'll be my next tattoo. But I just love the idea that, we're all where we're at within our own lives. And the one thing that you can try is just yourself. Who knows what is going to come out of you if you just push and... that's come back to the
It reminds me of a thing of I've been watching Salvador Dali interviews and he was on Dick Cavett, and Dick Cavett he's kind of dismissive, with certain guests for some reason. He doesn't really get them, but Dali was like he didn't enter into that. He just stayed himself, and he said Dick Cavett said, "Do you always want to be an artist growing up?" And he said, "No. When I was younger, I wanted to be a lactating woman, but now I just want to be more and more Dali every day." And that's a way, it's a funny way of putting it. I want to be more and more Dali every day, because it's undefinable, but at the same time,
that's right.
And
as it should be, because it's you as yourself. Yeah, for sure. No, that's cool. That is cool.
So, so what are you working on?
There's a few things. Ryan and I, my brother, producing and writing and directing partner, we have a really cool series that I can't talk about. It's a limited run series that, again, is going to do our heads in. But we've got some heat on that, so we're currently writing that. And then on a personal level, I have a film that I wrote in 2006. I've done 4 drafts of it now. I keep thinking like it's too hard, or the world's not ready, or I'm not ready for the backlash from it, but it's a film that's about kind of everything we've talked about right now. It's an existential comedy that is dealing with all of these themes. It's very much a Darren Aronofsky, Charlie Kaufman take on existence and the afterlife and mental illness and everything that I tend to do.
So where are you still writing? Are you trying to get that into production, or are you moving ahead?
That actually is still writing right now. So I plan, and it's funny, I feel like the same cycle that created Volition. I feel like I'm there again with this, where it's going to take me, I think, 2 weeks to do another draft. I'll just hunker down and do it, and then I'm going to start shopping it around. And I think, the wave is, I've now practiced on my surfboard to kind of hopefully catch this wave, and I think it's the right time for that. So I'm very confident that somebody's going to make it.
And the limited series with Ryan is in production, or it's
no, it's in development right now.
Okay.
And so really exciting, kind of to do with everything that the world is going through right now, as far as echo chambers and cancel culture, but done in a very, very kind of cool science fiction way. I really can't talk about it too much, but
okay.
I'll tell you privately, but
Cool.
And also loving your music, and thank you for the instrumentals, because now I get to like dork out and play guitar to them.
Oh yeah.
So, really excited.
Well,
we're
looking forward to a post on Instagram within the next month or two.
Yeah.
You got it. Multiple Tonys playing guitar solos.
Really, I just need a girlfriend again. So when I thought guitar would bring the girls, but they just bring more guitars.
Should try accordion.
Yeah, sure.
Girls like bass.
And also, they like bass. Yeah. I know. And Johnny, I need to find out, did you get that amazing tracksuit I saw it came out of the wallpaper. Did the wallpaper come out of it? Like that is.
Well, yeah. People keep asking about this on the stream and on Instagram. Dylan's wife Amber is an amazing artist, and I don't know if you can see the. Let me see if this wide shot can show it. Oh yeah, you can see it.
Yeah, back
there. Yeah. So she did that painting and a bunch of paintings we have in our house, and got lucky because Dylan and her don't have any space to store this art, so it's just kind of living here in the studio. And one day we've got that Printful service where you can put anything on a shirt. I was like, fuck it, I'm just gonna design an entire outfit without Amber's art because like I have no design capabilities or skills whatsoever.
Lift up your flip flops.
Oh yeah, the flip flops are
unbelievable. Seriously.
And I've just committed to wearing the same silly outfit over and over for a few months, see where it gets me. I might see if she's got another painting I can do it with. Hey,
so I'm definitely here for that. More of that, please.
Well, yeah, look, really great to talk with you. It's been too long that we haven't talked in like real life off the air. We should catch up more often. And if you ever want to come down to the great country of Texas, you're more than welcome to come stay with us. And good luck with everything, and we'll talk soon. So thanks for joining us. Tony Dean Smith, which one last thing, as a director with 3 names, you're destined for great success.
Or being a serial killer. I mean, we don't know. We're going to see how it turns out. But don't all serial killers
have 3
names? Like,
you could be both.
We don't know.
Yeah.
Exactly. But it has been fun unpacking this stuff with you guys. So, and that's a little joke.
I got it.
And, yeah.
All right, man.
But no, thanks for having me, guys. Such a pleasure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, very cool.
We'll see you guys next week. And then coming up in January, we have a couple more in-studio guests out here in Texas that we're looking forward to. Shayna Sands, great singer-songwriter here, and Dad Zodiac, who's also a musician and one of the funniest TikTok accounts I've ever come across, and he has like 800 followers. So I'm excited to talk to someone that's funny and no one has discovered yet.
Yeah.
So we'll see you guys next week. Goodbye.
See ya.